Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. And today we are discussing an extraordinary one-year-only model launched for 2024. It will only be made in 2024, the leap year, for a 12-month period. This is the H.Moser Cie Streamliner Perpetual calendar concept smoked salmon. So the concept dial means completely unbranded and unadorned. Smoked salmon, it is a salmon dial with a fume or smoked gradient fade, a signature of Moser. And of course, this is the Streamliner sports watch model line that first launched in 2020. So 120 meters water resistant with a screw down crown, a tonneau case profile, and a fully integrated, almost organically profiled, interlinking, and seamless integrated bracelet. You can also see that the watch is large but not huge at 42.3 millimeters in diameter. It is 13.5 millimeters thick, and if we measure from the first link to the opposite link on each side, that's how I measure this one horizontally across the wrist. It's a large but not huge 48.2 millimeters. Okay, thrown it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. It fits well. It's an easy watch to wear. Being a manual wind, it is a little bit thinner than the also 42.3 flyback chronograph, so it sits lower on the wrist, and with a sloped case flank, it will slide underneath the dress cuff. You can see on my wrist from over the top, the lugs are nowhere near the edge of my wrist, and that is compounded. When you look down the barrel shot, which is always the true fit shot, you can see that this watch could be worn on a wrist probably as small as 14 centimeters circumference with no ergonomic issues. The bracelet is a lovely piece. I see a little bit of a Bell Sport Classic from the late 70s in here, maybe a little bit of the Omega Speed Sonic chronograph lobster tail. But the great thing about the Streamliner is, although clearly a tribute to the 70s and the watches of the 70s, you don't look at it and say, oh, well, that's an Oris Chronoris Star, or a Royal Oak, or a Nautilus, or a 222, or a Mark Series Speedmaster chronograph. This is very much its own thing. So we've got that tonneau profile that segues into a tapered bracelet. And look at these little interior recesses that are polished. Look at the bevel that runs down perfectly aligned across the edges of the links, and it's actually an extension of the bevel on the edge of the case. Moser case bands are always recessed and sculpted in some way, and this little recess with satination between the polished flanks of the case back and the bezel, that's how that's expressed here. Taking a look at the taper of the bracelet, you can see that it's not possible to actually see through the bracelet. It's so seamless and interlinked that it is solid, and it has a feel almost like silk as it's so flexible across the wrist. The souplesse is matchless. We have a pin and bar system with little sleeves around the pins, and so you'll need a block and punch if you want to size this at home, but on the plus side you have many small individual removable links, so you're going to get a really good fit here. I would say the buckle is the only part of this watch that feels a little bit generic, and you can see that's because it's made by Bracelet, which is down in Italian-speaking Switzerland. They make a lot of clasps and bracelets and hardware for watches, and of course Moser has been a long-time client of theirs. That's what the BRO stands for. Still, it is a very functional clasp, twin trigger release, so it can't pop open accidentally, and when closed you see the Moser crest right there, H.Moser Cie. Of course, Moser, a revived brand that was resurrected in 2005. It has a long history dating back to the 19th century, but for the most part this brand has a history that starts in 2005. The next important evolution was 2012, when the Milan family bought into the company, fixed everything that was busted, and kept everything that was worth saving. And they really found a great balance between a reliable, consistent product and all of the innovations that had been instilled in the Moser watches launched from 2005. So what we've got here is a perpetual calendar system designed by independent watchmaking great Andreas Streller. Now, to actuate it, you've got to pull the crown twice. The first thing you do is you pull the crown, and what'll happen is it'll go into calendar setting mode. What's interesting here is they have this double pull system. By the way, it's a screw-in crown. I just screwed it out before the video. When you pull it the first time, you can't hack the movement. It's designed to prevent you from accidentally stopping and desynchronizing your watch when you pull the crown out to set the calendar. So if you want to actually hack it and stop it, you pull again after that initial pull, and now the crown withdraws. Andreas Streller is famous for building complicated mechanisms that look and work in simple fashion. So he's got the double pull crown to prevent accidental accidental setting of the time, and then bidirectional setting of the calendar. You can see how I can set this large twin disc date in two directions, and you'll actually find here that if you look, there's a seam between the two discs. That's how that huge numeral can be used without creating a dial that's gigantic. There are two overlapping discs that allow a big display of the date. Now, because it's bidirectional, and I can set it at any time of day, there is no danger zone for this perpetual calendar. There's a little index at center. So 12 hours representing 12 months. So you can see I'm jumping from one month to the other between June and July right there. And so that little index, 12 months, 12 hours, that's how it indicates the month. There's a little pusher on the case flank that allows you to jump the leap year indicator, which is on the case back, because Streller correctly reasoned that you didn't need this information all the time. And of course, we do have the hacking and stop seconds. There is a ceramic luminescent material called Globalite that is used to lume this dial, and you can see that the date itself is also luminescent. And then we've got a power reserve indicator up there. The watch is a manual wind power reserve twin barrels. You can see their arbors in golden chaton on the reverse side. Although it's advertised to run for 7 days, in fact, it'll run for almost 9. So German-Swiss watchmaking, these folks out of Schaffhausen, under-promising and over-delivering. Now you can see the smoked salmon dial has vertical metallic grain, and then it has a phased application of lacquer to create the smoked fade as you move further outboard. Moser dials, very distinctive. You can see this without indices, without marks, applique, or branding, and you know exactly who made it. Now turning things over, the old HMC 800 movement's been upgraded here. This is now the 812. So we get these individual finger bridges for the terminal end of the drivetrain. You can see we've got a very large and visible train wheels. We've got skeletonization, and the bridge has been opened up to better show the works. You can also see the company's proprietary 14-karat gold escapement, which operates with little lubrication and very little friction. Now, Moser is a true movement manufacturer, not just bridges, plates, wheels, and pivots. They're making the really challenging parts of the movement, including a solid 14-karat gold escapement, the overcoil hairspring for concentric breathing and even timekeeping in every position, and they're making their own balance, their own oscillator. It's a free-sprung balance for shock resistance and precise setting, and it's a dual-anchored balance bridge with a mounting on each side, again, further to brace against shock. Other changes on this version, we've got nickel anthracite coating across the bridges. It's a lovely sort of PVD nickel anthracite. You can see the horizontal striping, a very unusual application of Côte de Genève. These are Moser stripes. As you can see that they are actually double crested on each stripe. Now we have golden chaton fixed by polished screws, fixing the barrel arbor in place. That is a little nod to the way Moser pocket watches were made in the 19th and early 20th century. You can see there are also little non-screw fixed chaton mounting the train wheels right there. Taking a quick look, you can see that there's also beveling. Though it's mostly machined, it's handsomely done and a worthwhile application. All screw heads are mirror finished, and you can see satination on the balance bridge, the setting lever for the leap year. You can see that the leap year indexing spring's also been satinated. We have satination on the crown wheel core and this lovely pocket watch style extended swan's neck click spring. Lots to love here. And of course, a perpetual calendar, so it's able to discern the difference between regular and irregular length months and leap years. You do not need to set it until the year 2100, and then because this is bidirectionally settable, you will be able to correct it yourself in the year 2100 without having to resort to a watchmaker. Now it beats away at a slow rate. This is 18,000 vibrations per hour, so a very stately and traditional pocket watch beat rate. You can also see that the entire assortment, that is the escapement as well as the balance and the hairspring and its bridge, it can be lifted out as one unit. So when this watch goes back to the regional Moser service stations, and they do have regional service, which is a real advantage of owning a Moser, they can pull out that whole assembly and replace it with a pre-lubricated and regulated one so your watch gets back to you faster. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.